Okay, I'm here for another episode of Reflections, and my guest this time is going to be PowerOfEvil, now of Origen, but better known for his time in Unicorns of Love, most likely. So, guten Tag.
Good morning.
Okay, so I want to go way back in time, because most people, even if they know you from Unicorns of Love, the EU challenger scene wasn't very widely watched. Like, it had a few hardcore fans, but for example, I mean, we can tell some of the North American teams, for example, had no clue who some of the European challenger players were until they joined LCS. So even before that time, like, I know you were playing as far back as 2013 when you were much younger, and then obviously you were playing basically in all the challenger series since then, 2014, 2015. Were you actually a really good player back then?
No, I wouldn't say, honestly. I was like a really, really good player. I was just playing, I think, better than playing nationally EPS. It was like a league just for German players. Sure. And I felt I was better than that. So I joined Challenger Series, was playing with kind of friends, people from Challenger scene. And you just joined up in the team and we were playing Challenger Series. Not too successfully, but it was alright.
Are you someone where, like, did you always have like a drive, like, oh, one day I'm going to be a top player, or I have to get better and get to that level? Did it just happen naturally?
Well, honestly, when I was starting to play League of Legends, it was just for fun. Like, I played 1,000 normal games or something before I even started playing ranked. And when I started playing ranked, it was I didn't really have in front of my next year I'm going to be pro or I want to become an LCS player. I just played ranked and I became better and better. And at some point when I was playing like these little tournaments, when you finally won like a mouse for like 40 euros or something, I was like, man, I actually can make money out of it. And I was starting to try to become better, and playing Challenger Series was the first step.
When I talk about, like, you were playing in 2013, you were even playing in Challenger Series in 2014, were you actually at the level of, like, were you in Challenger when that first got created? Were you high elo already?
Well, back then there were only 50 Challenger places, and I think when I was playing Challenger Series back then, I was in the Challenger League, but only like placed 50 or something. It was quite a success being under the top 50 players, but I didn't have much experience. So back then, when I played, even so I think I had quite good mechanics, it's a lot about decision making and communication. So it's just something what comes with experience and time, I would say.
You see with a number of people who come into LCS, like, before they actually join LCS, there might be like a buzz builds up, like maybe they're amazing in solo queue, or obviously in Challenger Series they can do very well. In terms of actual other players talking about mid laners, I actually don't remember anyone talking about you before you got to like the end of the Challenger Series, basically. Like, even if I did interviews and asked EU mids, like, oh, are there any like next rising players out there? None of them really mentioned you. So, like, is there a reason why you wouldn't have impressed them back then? Is there something? Were you actually in solo queue? You were a very good player at this time in Challenger Series?
I think I was more of a team player than actually a solo queue player. So my solo queue performance was fine-ish, but I think one of the biggest reasons is a lot of people don't really like my champion pool, I think. So when I was playing like Syndra or something and they actually lost against it, like if you play against a guy who plays the champion that would never get played from anyone else, you actually don't know the damage, you don't know the spells, like the cooldowns. It's like really hard to play against that, and if you lose against him, you kind of feel like, well, at least I would feel like he had an advantage, So it's not like fully a 1v1,
So they would think like, oh, it doesn't count, that would never happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that mean you were always like this? Were you always trying to experiment and have like a strange champion pool?
I was trying to play the champions I really like, so I figured out Syndra is just my playstyle and I really like the champion, so I was just playing it and didn't really stop it. But next to having my champions that I'm experimenting with, I try to keep the meta champions, like, I don't know, it was Viktor, Azir, before it was the poke meta with Varus and Kog'maw, and I'm just trying to like find what is OP right now. As example, I think when the poke meta came, I think Varus was really strong, and I think I was one of the first players who played it. But I was playing like these normal meta champions like Orianna as well.
Okay. When I was looking into your past and some of the old teams you played for, I saw that when you played for Planet Key Dynamics, you actually played with NoXiAK, who most people would not have most people would have had no clue who this guy was until about a month ago. But now that he's joined FNATIC, obviously people are interested. They saw him at IEM. Can you tell us a little bit about this player? Like, what should we expect from him in LCS?
Well, so I'm still quite good in contact with him. He's like German too, so I'm quite good friends with him, and he's, I think, a really, really good solo queue player. Like, he plays the whole day solo queue and tries to improve. He has a really good attitude, and I think he doesn't have the best experience yet because he had only a little time in Meteor Makers and the short time in SK Gaming. But with FNATIC, I think he can grow a lot as a player and probably fit into the shoes of Yellowstar after some time, obviously.
So one of the first times when I became aware of you was I was following, quite interestingly, like the progress of NIP, because they'd always been the team in Challenger who, like, everyone thought, oh, every season, you know, they're supposed to go up. But obviously always something went wrong. And then they had this lineup that initially looked really crazy. It was the one where alexich went top lane, then they had Nukeduck, Mithy, Freeze, Ku. So at the time everyone was like, this team will for sure win Challenger. And the story was, because Nukeduck and Mithy got banned for toxicity, which is hilarious but sad, it meant that there was a situation where they needed new players, obviously. And actually, you came into the team and you played the DreamHack Summer Tournament with them. And I remember afterwards, I mean, you guys won the tournament, and I was thinking, okay, will this be the new lineup of NIP? But actually, it wasn't that long after us, if I seem to remember correctly, that alexich decided, like, no, I'm going to go mid again, and then you were out of the team. Was it ever actually planned that you were going to be like a permanent member of NIP?
Well, so it was kind of luck and the misfortune of obviously Nukeduck and Mithy, because as you just said, the moment they got banned, there was the spot open and I joined NIP. And it was kind of, for me, the big shot because it was my first offline event too. So when I went to DreamHack, there was kind of a trial combined. So they were saying, if it's a good performance, if we can succeed, you know, you might become the permanent player. So we went there, we won, and in the end, I can't really remember what was the final reason, but I don't think it was only coming from alexich. There was like a lot of different reasons. He changes because of this and this player, and it was just internal issues, and I ended up being teamless afterwards. So I needed to like fast look for a team because it was shortly before the qualifier tournament for the promotion to LCS.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the things from the outside that I think everyone thought was weird was obviously later on you in Unicorns Love would actually beat NIP, and alexich was playing there, and famously you actually played very well, alexich played very poorly. So I think some people from the outside thought that like alexich just thought, I'm better than this guy, I'll go back mid lane again or something. But it wasn't like that, as far as you know?
As far as I know, it was not like that, yeah.
Okay. When you actually joined the Unicorns Love team, I can understand why. Okay, you've probably heard this before, but when alexich did badly in the challenger scene in Europe, people didn't go like, oh wow, these guys who beat him must be really good. They were like, wow, alexich must be total shit. Like, who the fuck is Febiven? Who is PowerOfEvil? Who is Fox, you know? But obviously it was only a split later. Those guys were really good players and were top LCS players. Did alexich actually have some problems when he went back to mid?
I think he was obviously I think you have some problems of decision making after you play like these tanky champions. So I think he had kind of a disadvantage because top lane is, I think, a lot different to mid lane. So the wave control is different. The champions are kind of different if you play these. I think it was the Shibana meta, so it was actually tanks and not these control mages or AD assassins. So I think it was a lot different to mid lane. Because right now you can actually play Lissandra, or you see a lot of Lissandra top lane, Lulu. I think back then there was mostly only Lulu as AP top lane.
So one of the other reasons why I don't think people expected much from Unicorns of Love is that most of the players in the team were not like famous players. They'd all been on a bunch of different challenger teams over the years. And also, before you joined up and a couple of the other players joined, they had actually been losing quite early in all the challenger tournaments, and they hadn't particularly done anything good. When you actually joined Unicorns of Love, like full on like this to go for to try and qualify for LCS, like, did you have a sense for how good you were already? It's in the team?
Well, so I played one challenger series with UL before, and I think we lost 0-2 to the old NIP with Nukeduck and Mithy. So the second channel series they played without me, and they were going 0-2 again. So we had like nearly 0 points. Like it was like the point system where you play 2 tournaments and then you qualify for the promotion tournament. And we had like nearly 0. And luckily, I don't know, I think I was playing Dax, won against like the team before us, so we could get a draw. And it was kind of getting the 10th place of the bracket and getting 3rd place against NRP and qualifying with that to the promotion tournament against the Millennium. I was always like, we were literally on the edge the entire time of our way to the LCS, and so we obviously knew we can like succeed and we can achieve something, but it was not like, man, we're the best, you know, because we were always like on the edge of actually dropping out.
Do you think that run through the Challenger series was it like a breakout tournament for you? I mean, like I said, I remember watching the series against NIP, and you were like the star of the series, basically.
I think for me, it was I think my starting point was probably the DreamHack with NRP, and afterwards, obviously, the next best of 5 against NRP with UL was, I think, the next big shot for me.
Okay. So when you went to the promotion tournament, you managed to beat Millennium, who is the thing. They'd been like not a great team in LCS, but they obviously had players where some of them were very experienced and some of them had been good players. What was your actual expectations going against them?
I think we expected it to be a close series, but I felt like we can actually win the series. So when we lost the first game, or we went into the first game, and if I remember correctly, I actually died a few times 1v1. I was like, man, they're actually way better than I expected, and the second game was already way closer, but we managed to lose again. So the third game, it was kind of like an all-in. We knew we need to pull out something cheesy, and we played, I think, with Gilius or someone. It was with Gilius, exactly. And maybe in the champion section, randomly, like Chachi says, let's play Poppy, you know? Like we tried it out a few times in scrims and it worked out. And it was actually really funny because he was just saying it like really casually, like, let's just try it out. And I think Gilius or someone was like, no, don't troll, you know? But Hilly-sang and me, I think we were just like, let's just go for it. You know, we don't have anything to lose, because when you're 0-2 down, and I think we were a little bit weaker, or like we needed something to actually like pull out this one win to actually win the series. So we just tried the Poppy and it worked out. And afterwards, I don't know, I just felt like we had the game in our bag. And obviously when you win, if you not reverse sweep, but if you win 2 games after being 0-2 down, I think you have a way better chance at winning the 5th game than the other team.
Okay, so kind of along the lines of what you're talking about here, one of the things that made Unicorns of Love famous was not just you yourself having a different meta, but like Cheese in general and trying really weird picks. And obviously the most famous example of this was when you got to play against TSM and you completely tricked them in the draft into thinking it was going to be a TF mid. Well, I mean, to be fair, it's pretty unreasonable for someone who expected it to be in the jungle. Was this really a plan that you had like in advance and it was really all come together? Was there anything last minute about it?
I don't know, like Kikis was a player who played a lot of really, really weird stuff in the jungle, like Kog'maw jungle, and like the weirdest stuff even I have seen, you know. I play champions like Syndra or something, which you can actually play in the mid lane, but he would just play top laners or AD carries in the jungle and just try it out, and well, even mid laners like Twisted Fate, and I think you could like pull the jungle minions without really losing HP. It was like the ones that they don't really reset good enough. So it was a really, really strong pick back then. And the ganks were insane with the gold card. Like we were playing scrims, but only a few times again, and it worked out perfectly. So when we came into the game, and I was playing tons of LeBlanc, like I didn't really like the champion, but at some point in the soloq game or something, I just started to like the champion. You could jump around 24/7 and kill people, and we came into the game, into the champion section, and we see the Xerath. We were like, we can actually do the best cheese in the game right now with going Twisted Fate, and obviously he went Xerath, and that was like perfect for us. Like it couldn't have went better. It's like one of the best champions you can face as LeBlanc.
It was a bit fluky though, right? To be able to do that like flash gold card so early in the game and land it, right? Yeah,
like we were planning in the champion section that on level 2 he comes with gold card, and I will I went WE instead of like Q or W. So we have like the chain gold card, and you literally can't do anything against that. It's like flash gold card into W chain, and he didn't. I don't think he blew any summoners, but like even if he did, there was no escape.
Okay. So in the second game was the one where you played Syndra. Now, this is the game where actually everyone made fun of TSM and TSM's coach because they brought up all your like solo queue stats, and obviously like Syndra was like one of your most played champions, and yet they apparently, it looked like they didn't even know you played the champion. Did you get that sense? Were you surprised this was open?
I think a little bit, but I can't really remember what the bans were because it's like so long ago, but I was one of my main champions.
Okay,
so
I think the bans were let's see, I've got them here actually. It was LeBlanc, Na, and Warwick.
Okay, so when I remember correctly, it was the time when people played a lot of Warwick and Schrag. So the Warwick ban makes sense, and the LeBlanc because I think I had a really good game on LeBlanc before.
Yeah.
And what was the third ban again?
Na, which I think was like the first big using it at.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like Na just came out and was really, really strong. So I don't think they can actually afford to ban Syndra, because then I had the LeBlanc, or they needed to do something like ban Syndra, pick LeBlanc. So I think it was kind of tricky for them to actually take the Syndra away from me.
One thing I actually found interesting about that match as well is that obviously Bjergsen himself used to be a Syndra main, so I thought, okay, well he will have like a good sense of how to play against this. And he was on Azir, which at the time was actually a very new champion, but he looked like one of the really good players on it initially. Were you surprised how well you did against him?
Well, I think I was really, like, if I'm honest, I was really nervous jumping into the first game. Like, even if I had the better champion or the better matchup. When I came into the game, I was like, man, I'm playing against Bjergsen, and it was like the first international tournament for me. So I was like, damn, man, I need to like, perform good. And after we had the cheese gank, I just felt really cool and wasn't nervous at all anymore. And I got these 1v1 kills. And after the first game, I was like, we can win against TSM, and I can win against Bjergsen. So like he wasn't immortal anymore for me. And in the second game, I obviously had this 1v1 kill again, and afterwards I felt really good, and I don't know, our communication was just like 10 times better than normally. We were just all more focused, more concentrated. It was like a lot of adrenaline, I think, in our bodies.
So in the final, in game 1, you played Lux mid. Now, I remember people used to play Lux mid in like season 2. Was that really a champion that was in your champion pool at the time?
Yeah, I'm actually someone who likes to play these long champions, these control mages. I'm the type of guy, I think, who has quite a good overview in team fights. So I really like to play these Orianna, Lux, who can deal a lot of damage in a team fight while supporting the team and maybe like calling, like kite back, run to the river, turn around, like doing these calls in team fights. And back then, we didn't have like the best calls, so I think that was quite important for me, like doing this stuff and actually dealing a lot of damage from the back without being in danger, because I normally felt when I played these assassins, we actually elected some damage if I didn't go like a lot of kills in the mid lane. So I think control mages are really important in Uwe.
In the final against Cloud9, obviously they won 3-0, and they were a fantastic team at the time, and obviously very good shot calling, a number of good players. Would it have been possible to win this final? Like, did they just feel a lot better? What was the difficulties?
I think the biggest difficulty for me was that Lamination was roaming mid lane so many times. Like, I think in every game they had the control over bot lane. So if I recall correctly, in TSM it was sometimes Hilly-Sam group mid lane, sometimes TSM support, and in Cloud9 it was mostly Cloud9 having the pressure on bot lane. So the supporter could roam mid lane, could ward out, could supply pressure in the mid lane, and it was really tough for me actually getting kills, getting pressure, because sometimes Meteors was just warding out and wards, and just having the presence of the jungler and supporter was really tough for me, and I don't think we did the same. So I think that was one of the biggest stuff for me as a mid liner. Obviously, they out-rotated us and had better decision making, so they were clearly the better team in the series.
I realize this term has become like a meme, and it is like a funny thing to bring up. But is chaos style a real thing, PowerOfEvil?
Chaos style, like, I think it's I wouldn't really call it chaos style. Like, I would call it just in these clutch moments, you know, when there's like we have like these weird picks, you know, that's like one of the reasons. We have not the best shot calling, so sometimes we're kind of in split decisions. But at some point we're just all at one mind. Like, if you play 1 year with the same players, even if there's like 2 calls, you know which one is the right one. So at the end, it was not really any more split decisions, and I wouldn't call it chaos style, but our games were chaos. Like, I can't deny that. Like, we had games, they were, I don't know, weird, really weird, and kills over kills. But that's a lot of because we didn't really like just, you know, farm and laned. We actually tried to do something into the game. So even if we're 20k gold behind, we actually tried to go for the team fight. We didn't just slowly lose the game. And I think that was one of the reasons why our games were mostly really exciting, that we went for team fights that we actually couldn't win. So obviously that's not always good, but it can turn out good and get you a comeback. So there was a few reasons why we sometimes came back, or we just lost literally like 30-0 because we went for the team fight even so we're 10k gold behind. The lead from the enemy explodes to 20k and the game's lost.
Like, when you had some good wins, it was mainly the commentators who were always saying, like, wow, they used the chaos style and made it sound like some extreme strategy. And what's funny is I remember this really tilted Monte Cristo every time I brought it up on Some of the Insight. And his theory on it, goes like this. He thinks that chaos style didn't exist, that it was just people who didn't have good comms, so it wasn't like crisp shot calling, and what would happen is that if there was like a chance to skirmish, if someone went in, you just kind of like back them up, you know, like you all go in at that point in time. You kind of it's like, okay, we're all in on this. No one's backing out of it, you know.
I would agree with the calls a little bit at the start, but with always like backing someone up, it was mostly like we had like games. It was like really weird when Hilly-san goes like blood rage mode or something, and he's like, I think a good example was the series against SK Gaming. It was like spring split semifinals or something, and he was playing trash, and we had like really good games, and he's really he's like a god on trash, and he hits these hooks and he would just go on every hook. Like, he would just QQ on every hook and just call go in, and we just all follow and we just die, and we just do it for like 10 minutes. We just go in and die, and after the game we are like, Hilly or like, team guys, you need to calm down. Like, we are just going in and dying like animals, you know. So sometimes we just, I think, didn't really think about what we are doing, but like in the way that we didn't think about every move. So if we die here, we would lose the Baron, or if only one guy dies, we will lose the Baron, and that's like stuff that's really important. But I think that's a lot coming from that we didn't really have a single veteran. Like, we were all just, literally everyone in the team was new to the LCS, and it was from all of us the first split.
The strange thing is, when I watched these games, and the funny thing about the whole chaos style thing is that the reason why, obviously, I always thought Monty's theory had something to it is that, I mean, you did win roughly around, it was usually like you'd win a game, you'd lose a game, you'd win a game, you'd lose a game. So it wasn't even like it was super consistent. But with these chaotic fights and the skirmishes all over the map, I noticed that even though a lot of the rest of the team was doing that, and obviously most famously this was Kikis' style of play, I noticed actually your style of play seemed a bit more controlled. Like, even within that, you were playing mages, so it's not like you're going to dive in like an assassin, but even so, it seemed like you always had a very good control on like how to stay on the outside of the fight, to come in. Is this a strength of yours in team fights?
I think a strength of mine is having this overview in a team fight and position correctly. So when I was playing with UL, I found control mages are really good because Hilly-san was mostly playing engage supports. We had Kigis on playing this like weird stuff, sometimes like these Pantheon or Twisted Fate, so he could engage as well. Like, we had normally like a tank top lane, so I had this quite kind of big front line with engage, so I could play these control mages, being in a good position, dealing the damage from the back and being in a safe spot. And I just felt like this was our best combination of, and having like something like a severe speed buff to actually get the perfect engage, and that was like, I think, our perfect team combination every time.
Which types of teams do you think gave you the most trouble in terms of like your team fighting style? Like who were the ones that you didn't like to play against in that sense?
I think like it was weird because in the spring split, if I remember correctly, we were winning more than 50% of our games against the top tier teams like FNATIC and SK Gaming, but we mostly lost against the lower tier teams. So I think the lower tier teams was more of a problem because they would react faster to like our dumb stuff. I think like if we invade randomly, or like if we invade and we try to ward out, or Hilly does it alone, he gets way faster punished because I would say a good team maybe thinks the jungler is behind him or someone's backing her up, or he knows no one is here, so he wards out. I think lower tier teams could punish our mistakes a little bit better actually.
In that spring split for the playoffs, I think you're one of the few teams I've seen where you went to the final, but every single round, everyone predicted you will lose.
Yeah.
It was like for sure Gambit, and then SK, they were the best team. Did you know that your team could go that far? I mean, obviously, it still was a lot of losses even in the run.
Well, I think every series we had a chance, and I actually know that everyone was like every time predicting whoever lose, but I actually didn't care because if you're the underdog, you have nothing to lose. If you lose, it's like fine, people will be like, we knew it anyway, and if you win, it's like huge upset. So every time we won, it was just like next series, we just looked at one series at a time, and I think the SK Gaming one was probably the closest. We were like, we really need to perform really good here to make it to the finals.
So earlier in the interview, when we were talking before, you kind of implied that, like, for example, in the Millennium series, when things were going really badly, like that was the time where it made sense to, like, let's just do like a crazy pick, let's do something weird. In actual game theory of how to play games ideally and beyond just computer games, it's true that if you're like a big underdog, you should try to increase the variance. Like you want to do things that are very bizarre or unexpected, or just make it so it's not the standard metagame. To some degree, is that part of the reason why in general there were so many weird picks and so many strange cheeses and stuff? Like if you, like, as a weird question as it is, if you'd been a better team, would you have just tried to play more standard, do you think?
I think every one of us had like a few champions that he just brought a few champions, like how to say it. So he had the normal champion pool of the meta, but he brought some champions like from his own into the team. So when I was joining I brought in like Syndra and Cassiopeia, made like AP Kog'maw, champions that normally isn't getting played, but I really enjoyed playing them in a few matchups. So we sometimes just played them. Same for keys, like having the Udyr or having the Shaco or Twisted Fate. I think Kiki's, me, and I think Chachi had a few champions as well. So every one of us had a few champions besides the normal meta, and we didn't really stop playing them. We sometimes tried to find something out new, but mostly we kept the champions we actually played before joining the LCS, I would say.
Okay. In the series against SK, obviously a lot of people thought they were going to win this because, I mean, they had, like, at the time, Febiven was supposed to be the best player, and a lot of the other members had looked very good. Do you think they played in that series, like, to their full level? Was there something that threw them off? Did you have a good approach against them as a team? Because in some of the games you did shut them down.
I think it was. I would say this series was a really strong performance by Hylissang. Like, I don't know how many times they actually got like 2v2 kills against Forgiven and then rated. Like, I think going into the game we didn't expect so many 2v2 kills from our bot lane, but they stepped up like huge. And I think we just played out the game. I don't think we had anything special in that series. I think our team fights were just better than theirs. Like, even so, we would maybe go a little bit behind in the laning phase because they had, let's say, the better matchup. Or Forgiven, I don't know how he does it, but he always comes ahead in CS. So even so, they actually came ahead a little bit in gold. We could make the comeback in team fights with our like weird engages or like really strong any flashes, hooks and just getting these comebacks in team fights. And afterwards, I think in the late game fights, this was one of our biggest strengths. So our late game fights was nearly always good.
When I think back on that series, the two SK players who it felt like had good performances in some of the games was Febiven and Svenskeren. They were like having some really big games. But because, I mean, teams had figured out after that IEM, like if you ban out a certain champions, it's going to be harder for Febiven. That's obviously what was happening. One of the players it felt like was a bit missing for SK was Fox, because if Febiven's not carrying, you expect like, okay, this is Fox's chance to carry. Now, I actually did an interview with Nukeduck, where Nukeduck told me he actually thought in the spring, his opinion was he thought Fox was the best mid laner in all of Europe. Like, he even thought better than Febiven, better than some of the other players. So an interesting opinion. What did you actually think of Fox in this series and in the spring in general? Like, what was he like as a player? What was his strengths, do you think?
I think to say how good Fox is really hard. I feel like on some games he goes really off and he has a really, really good game. And some days I feel like he's playing really poor. So I think he's like a player who, I don't know, plays how the sun is shining or something, you know. So if the day is shiny and he plays really, really good, and if the day is rainy, I don't know, he's like not stepping up. Like, it's kind of weird, I would say. It's really hard to say how good he actually is, but I think he can be really good.
What can you tell me about the final against FNATIC? Because this has to be one of just the wildest series ever.
Yeah, so when we went into the finals, like, I don't think any one of us expected it, and FNATIC was a huge enemy, but we had 2 wins already against them. Like, obviously they were not the cleanest games. I think one of them was like the 2 times our Nexus dropped to like 1 HP. But then we went into the series. I think we were confident that we can actually beat them, because even though it was weird games and like not the cleanest, as I said before, we had 2 wins against like our opponent. And going into the series, it was just how to say, going just like any other series, to be honest. Like, we were a little bit more nervous, I would say, because it was actually like a bigger stage, and I can't actually remember if it was 1-1 or how the series actually went out. But driving it to 5 games was pretty nerve-wracking, and I can only remember the 5th game having like actually a perfect team fight, but I get one-shotted by like one combo of Steelback, and we actually lose from that point on. And I can just say, like, in that series, if you remember correctly, we fell behind a lot in the lane swaps, so FNATIC was just way better at lane swaps at that time. So after the series, we learned a lot. Like, we learned decision making, we learned a lot from lane swaps, because I felt we did a lot of mistakes in that series. And I think just reaching that point in the first split, even so getting only 2nd players, was helping us a lot. Getting, I would say, a little bit more self-confident. So after that first spring split, we felt, I think, way more safer going into the summer split, and I think it was just a really revealing feeling, kind of, getting 2nd place.
So since no one expected you to have a chance to win that final, obviously during the final you're just trying to think about the games, trying to win the series. Afterwards, one of the interesting like knock-on effects of that final was obviously whoever won it got to go to MSI. So actually, I mean, you guys were 1 game from going to MSI. Have you ever thought about that? I mean, you could have been playing FNATIC, you could have been playing Pawn.
I honestly didn't think about that one, to be honest. Like, now, since I'm an Origen, I actually think about it, and I really want to win the spring split final this time with Origen. But back in OL, I honestly didn't think about it. When I lost the final, I only lost the final, and I didn't think about, I actually lost the MSI kind of qualifier, or actually coming into MSI. So I was like, if I like look back, it's kind of sad, but to be honest, it's not too annoying.
Are you the kind of player where, like, okay, here's the thing, because a lot of players in interviews have learned like the sort of the way to present an opinion so it doesn't like trigger any fanboys, you know. A lot of players might sound really humble, okay, but actually I know in private a lot of them are quite cocky actually. Like, some of them, even if they say in the interview, no, I guess, like, you know, the top 3 mids, that would probably be like me, this guy, really in their mind they're like, it's me, like, I'm better than this guy, like they have rivalries, etc.
Yeah.
Are you someone where, like, could you be the best EU mid? Could you be the best Western mid? Do you really believe that?
I think I can, yeah, but I'm a person who is not really saying or like doing a list which is the best mid laner right now, or he's the first one, he's the second, or I'm under the top 3. I'm normally the guy who's like, I think I will just let other mid laners, other players or fans kind of judge who's the best mid laner right now, and I will just try my best to become the best, but it's kind of like not me who's actually saying, man, this guy's the best. Like I will just try my best and perform as good as I can and try to win as much as possible and hope then I can become the best.
If we put you in a tournament and you got to play, you know, like these legendary players, Faker, you know, people like that, are you confident? Would you be able to compete with these guys?
Like I got thrown in against like so many good players. Like I think the first one was people were saying, oh my god, like Alex Ich against PowerOfEvil and I will lose, or like I was throwing into tournament against Bjergsen. I actually don't think I would be too nervous anymore. I think it will be a huge challenge again, like playing against Alex Ich and Bjergsen and like other mid laners in the EU. It's like every time a challenge, and getting thrown in against Faker or someone, I would honestly be really happy to face him, and I will just try to learn as much as possible from that series or that laning phase. Like I think it's a lot of fun playing against really huge legends. Like if I faced him a few times in solo queue, and I literally just tried my best, you know. I literally tried sometimes so hard, and it's just cool, I think. And you can learn a lot, or I especially can learn a lot because I'm actually quite young.
So in the summer, 2 of your most played champions were also 2 that you played a lot in the spring, which is Kog'Maw and Orianna. Like obviously Orianna, the joke people always make with Orianna is like that will always be like the backup for every single mid lane. It will always exist in mid lane, has so much utility, you know. But yeah. Kog'Maw obviously has actually, it was a number of years it was never used as a mid lane, and you were mainly one of the people bringing it back. Can Kog'Maw always be viable as a mid laner?
I think it depends on a few things. Like back then, I felt the games were really slow. It was going a lot, or most of the games were really, really late game. So I felt he was good in a few matchups, and I mostly picked him into like Viktor or Azir, and I felt this is a really, really good matchup for Kog'Maw. You can farm, you can outplay him after 6, and I think after I played so many Kog'Maw games, so if people say Kog'Maw is not good before 11, sometimes I kind of just like roll with my eyes, because I played so many Kog'Maw games that I actually think he can win some lanes, like even pre-6, and he can win the lane after 6 for sure. So in UL we played a lot of scrims, and we had a lot of success with it. So my team was...
Give me an example, like what's an example of a lane people wouldn't expect, but Kog'Maw can actually like win this if you know what you're doing in the earlier levels?
As example, the Kog'Maw Azir matchup. Azir can WQ you and try to push you in, but if you hit the first E spells and give him always like a EW auto attack into his face, you can actually win the lane pre-6, like, or not fall behind in CS, and after 6 you have more range than his WQ with your ultimate, so you can always poke him out of the lane, so you will always have more pressure. And I played this matchup so many times that you can kind of like, you just know how much damage is he doing, when he's going for what, and the player you're facing, he normally doesn't know exactly how much damage, because you normally don't face a Kog'Maw as Azir. So you are in a kind of advantage again from this pick. And after we had a lot of success in scrims, as I said, it's just like the team was confident in the pick, I was confident in the pick, and we just played it in the LCS. And if it doesn't work out, it's like, I wouldn't really call the pick like was the mistake, but actually like we as a team.
Unless people have like a very specific composition where they want the Orianna, it feels like a lot of people only did use it in the way I kind of described. Like sometimes it's a backup if, you know, the other things they wanted to band out, and it's like a safe pick. Is there a reason why you focus so much on Orianna still? Like every split, you play it a lot. It's one of your most played champions. What's the strength that you see of it that makes you want to use it in most games?
I think Orianna is just a pick. You can literally pick it into every matchup, so it's always fine. Like you can win against every matchup. You can obviously lose against most of the matchups too, but it's always like a 50-50 and a skill matchup. And it in every meta or like in every patch, it feels like she's fine. You know, she's not OP, but she's not like weak. So she was always fine, and I mained her, or I played her like tons of games, then it was like the Orianna at 6 meter, where you could like stall the games out forever as a mid laner. I was playing so much Orianna and so much 6, and I just kept playing the champion.
Okay. When you played in the summer, and you guys, again, funny, the same story, like when you made it to the playoffs, everyone was like, okay, if this Roccat team's been doing pretty well, they picked it up towards the end of the season, they're surely going to win this series. And this was another like classic Unicorns of Love series, because it was a 3-2 and it was really backwards and forwards. What would you describe going on in this series? Because it seemed like you were having crazy games, but then like Nukeduck would have some come back, and then the 5th game obviously was kind of crazy in itself. So what happened in this series?
Yeah, I felt like the series was a lot about mid lane. Like when Nukeduck went off, it was really, really hard to do a comeback. And when I had a good game and I was fed, I could carry the game. It was really back and forth between, I think, me and Nukeduck. And obviously, like having I think both teams, like Vanda's having like these engaged supports, like Alosta as well, and Hidisang had these engaged supports. So, and I think Steve, it was with Steve, if I remember correctly. So I think we kind of had exactly the same kind of team. So top lane was mostly tank. Bot lane we had like these engaged supports. Relas and Vardex were mostly like either engaged with Sivir or like playing these kind of huge range champions. And mid lane was, I think, these control mages or like pokes from Varus. So it was really the same kind of. We were just literally the same team, and that's why I think it was really, really close. Like on the same kind of skill level and having the same team combinations.
Okay. We
were just mirroring each other, I think.
What was the difference in having Horo in the team instead of Kikis? Because obviously he came in very short notice and he very quickly had to play.
I think he has a lot of knowledge and he's really good at. He could provide us a lot with like, how's it called? He could provide a lot of functions of a coach. So obviously it's restricted because he's a player. So when he does after game analysis, he's not fully objective because he actually played the game. But he can provide a little bit, like if you played for a lot of years. So I think a veteran can provide a few functions, not the full coach role, but a few. And he was providing them, so it was quite helpful having these pre-game talks with him, or like he could say this and this. Maybe we need to focus on this next game. Obviously, we had Chibi for that too. So, but it was like a nice addition. And other than that, Horror was a really supportive jungler. It was for me as a mid laner actually really nice and really relaxing. So sometimes, he's doing a Raptor camp, and I'm like, oh, I need this and this item. Can I actually have it? Or I will get level up from this. Can I have it? He would say, just take it, or like he would just say, ping on it or something, so I can actually take it. And I know a lot of junglers, because I played in so many China series teams, who would actually be like, no man, just farm mid lane, or you don't get it. There's like a lot of different personalities in the jungle, and I think he's a really supportive jungler who would always try to help you out. So I think this was one of his strengths.
You're one of the few people who got to play the Spring FNATIC in a best of 5 and then the Summer FNATIC in a best of 5. And obviously the Summer one was the one that had never lost a game at that point in time. What was the differences between the two FNATICs? Were they different from the Spring?
I think they just I think they just improved like way better than any other team. Like from the Spring split, I think FNATIC was the strongest team going into the Summer split, and they had obviously the MSI experience, and they won the first games, and I think at some point they just were way better at the TP plays. Like who knew would either TP earlier or get kills, or I don't know. I can't say how FNATIC did it, but they were just always the better team and out rotating. Even sometimes they were behind, they just did these crazy comebacks. It was, I don't know, always like these clutch moments when every one of them played perfect, and it was really hard to play against that.
Has Febiven changed as a player from the guy who he used to play back in the Challenger scene?
I think so, yeah. He was one of the players who I would say played mostly assassins and kind of played, I think, a lot just to win the lane. So I think when he lost the lane, he was not useless, but he was just falling behind like really far. So when he didn't win the lane, he didn't get this pressure, could do these crazy rooms as assassin with these assassins. He was falling a lot behind. but in FNATIC he grew a lot as a player. So he picked up a lot of these control mages, and he's normally always like a factor in the game. He can always deal damage and isn't getting caught. So I think he just improved a lot from his Challenger Series time, from being I would say an assassin player to kind of being an all-rounder, I guess.
In the EU regional, that must have been a really depressing series, because if I tell someone, oh, they lost 3-0 in a best of 5, someone will think, oh, no problem then. They probably everyone played terribly. They just got completely wrecked. But at least 2 of these games, for game 1 especially, were you having like a really good game?
What was the matchup again?
That was the way you were Viktor, and you got like 9 kills.
Against FNATIC? Or you mean against Origen?
No, I'm in the regional, yeah, against Origen.
Against Origen. Yeah, like, I think the most depressing one was that we already went 0-6 before. So, I think when we lost the series against H2K before, I was like, man, I want to win against, I want to win the gauntlet. I want to win. I don't know, I just had this motivation to just play literally the whole week solo queue, and I just played and played. We played scrims, we played solo queue. I just didn't stop, and I just tried to improve as much as I could to actually beat Origen and win against them. And against Origen, the first game, I think it was like I was playing Viktor, and I got really, really fat. And I don't know, I can't say after the game, the first one, that we lost this game while I was so far ahead was a really bad thing, because it showed that even if I get really, really fat, it was so hard to actually win or pull off the win from them. So the second game, I think, was even faster I lose. So, and the third one even faster. It kind of went down from the first game, I would say. I didn't really get less motivated or was less like drive to actually win the game, but it just showed that how hard it is actually to get a win from Origen.
So one of the weird things about that Origen team was that when I think of the FNATIC teams that xPeke played for, he was like the star player. I mean, every time they won a game, usually he was the one carrying, and he's the one who'd go crazy and have the most kills. And it almost felt like, as xPeke goes, so does the team. That's how their success is going to be. Mm-hmm. But in Origen, almost everyone else in the team was having they were either really good on a certain champion or having a really good split. And it felt like xPeke in LCS was a bit subdued. He was a bit just like he was okay. He was like a good mid lane, but he didn't feel like the xPeke of old. What do you think?
I think it's hard to tell from the outsider perspective, because one of the reasons what I feel the same is sometimes I would just go for the bad matchup for mid lane, so bot lane or top lane would get ahead, So maybe the plan of actually was that he would take the bad matchup or would take a control match, would just farm and literally not do anything, and give Neil Smithy the better matchup to actually carry from the bot lane. So I think it's hard to say, but I would agree a little bit that I think his performance in Worlds was really, really good. Instead, better than LCS. I think he improved a lot in the Worlds.
When you came into the Origen team, it was very interesting the way they phrased the post. Like, I would have expected the post would be like, PowerOfEvil joins Origen and he's now the new mid laner. That would kind of be how it was. Instead, they kind of phrased it like, you've joined, but it's not that you're the sub, it's not that you're the starter. In fact, no one's the sub or the starter. Like, they're going to somehow split the time between you and xPeke. Like, do you have any kind of clue as to how that will work?
Well, so we are pretty much sharing the mid lane, as said in the post. So it will mostly depend on, I will just list some stuff. It will depend on the performance, on, I think, how the scrims go, how the team fits with each mid laner. I think these are, or like, which mid laner is fitting better in which matchup. So maybe my champion pool is way better against this and this mid laner, so I would fit in that series better. Or you change around, like, there's a lot of different stuff, but for now we are kind of sharing the mid lane, and I think we will just see how it goes, I think, the next split.
So even though, obviously, Origen was one of the best Western teams, as you see by the Worlds result, and it's obviously a team that has a lot of resources. It's an upgrade from the team you were on before, put it that way. Is it not weird to join a team and be in this situation you're in now, where you're sort of trying to compete for a position? Because I'm sure there's a lot of good teams you could just be the starting player for, and you wouldn't even have to worry about it. You play every LCS game. Well,
so the reasons why I joined Origen is, first of all, the team looks really promising. Like, the lineup is really good, and with me joining the team as an addition, I would say the team got even stronger than before, and it is a top world team. So I think with me like joining the team, it can be even stronger. So I felt that was one of the big reasons why I joined the team. Then it is everyone of the team is like, okay, other than Niels, they're all veterans. So I'm pretty sure I can learn a lot from them, like shot calling from Miffy and Mazing, or decision making. So I think it's really helpful for me as a young player to join this team, and I will just try to pick up as much experience and stuff I can to become better as a player. And the third, I think, like another thing is, I think I can learn a lot from xPeke. Like, I think we can help each other of finding picks or helping each other out in, I think this is better. I think we can have really good discussions, and I think we both respect each other as a midliner, so it's really helpful.
Obviously, by joining Origen, you got to go to IEM San Jose, and this time you finished one place better, you won the tournament. But most interesting to me was you got to play Bjergsen again, except that, this time he was the one with a brand new team. What did you think of playing him this second time?
For me, the biggest difference was the kind of the shot calling, and it was a lot of new stuff for me, because in UL we had like everyone's doing a call, and we kind of decide really fast which one we go. But in Origen, it is Miffy and Amazing mostly doing calls, and you kind of follow. So I think that was a really hard thing for me to learn, or like to pick up, because it was completely different for me. And TSM with the new roster, I felt they were strong, but I know I was really confident in the team, and with having Niels and Miffy on bot lane, Swords on top lane, I think every one of us, all lanes can really win the lane against any like opponent. So I felt really good in the series. Like when I was like 3-1 with this champion, I just like press tab and I see, oh man, bot lane is winning, top lane is winning. If you just pull off the game like really smooth now, we can win the game. And then these really good calls of like from Miffy, we invade here, we do this and this. It's like I can focus more on, I would say, what I actually want to do on my own. Because if he calls, we set up the Baron now, I can think about, okay, now I just push a mid lane, by a pink ward maybe. It's different from, I think about what can we do on my own, It's like you have less stuff to do, so you maybe like focus a little bit better on the other stuff.
In official games, your teams are 4-0 against Bjergsen's teams. Is that purely coincidence? Do you think does your style of mid lane, does it work well against his? Do you have like a kryptonite effect on him? What do you think?
I don't know. I think the second time it was a lot about him having like a new team and me joining a really, really strong team. So I think it has a lot of different factors, but I think I don't know. I just feel really confident facing him the next time again.
If I ask you about some EU mid laners, the way I want you to kind of break it down for me is like, how do you see this player like at the moment? And then also, just hypothetically, if you were to play against this player, like what's the kind of way you have to play against that guy, So give me like kind of a basic analysis. So if I ask you, first of all, I'll give you an easy one, Febiven.
So I say now what I would do against him, or what? Yeah,
just like how would PowerOfEvil play against Febiven? What's the approach you think you need to take against that type of a player?
I would most likely just play a control mage again, playing something like a Viktor or Orianna, but it kind of depends on the matchup too. So I like to play against some poke as well. So I would probably go control poke and get the pressure mid lane and room, because I think Febiven is really hard to actually get like 1v1 kills against him. But I feel that you can sometimes out-rotate him if you get the pressure. So if I can push him in and out-rotate him, that's helping a lot. And so getting pressure into the enemy jungle.
Okay, what about Froggen?
Against Froggen, I think against Froggen he's like so hard to kill. Like I think he's literally the only mid laner that it's nearly impossible for me actually to get a 1v1 kill. So against him I would mostly just pick literally one of like the biggest scaling champion I can actually get. Like Asia, Kog'maw. I would take these champions because I think against Froggen it's a lot farming, like getting. It's a lot of like a farm battle, I feel like, against them. Sometimes you go for these 1v1s, but it's like really short and only a few times, but you mostly go for this farm battle.
Okay. What about Ryu, H2K mid laner?
And against Ryu, I think he's a really aggressive one who goes a lot for the 1v1s, so I would try to get the better 1v1 matchup. I would try to get something like a Syndra, something aggressive that can win the lane in the 1v1, and I think that's the best thing to do against Ryu.
Okay, and last one I want to do is Nukeduck.
He's, I think, kind of tricky because he plays, I would say, assassins, poke, and control. So it kind of depends on the matchup again, but it's kind of you need to either get the better matchup if he has an assassin, I would say, or you need to have like a split pusher. Like I think against him, I would take something like a Cassiopeia to take the exhaust. You can win the 1v1s, you can supply some pressure in mid lane, and it's kind of fine against every matchup. Because poke is kind of out. That was a huge problem for Cassiopeia. That's what I would do, I think.
Obviously, some EU mids now actually are in NA. I mean, we've got Bjergsen, we've got Incarnation over there. So there's a lot of EU mid talent now, like guys who were famously very good in the past, Froggen, etc., all the modern day guys. If I asked you to pick for 2016, who's the EU mid laner, counting the guys who are in NA as well, who has the chance to be just like, who will have the best performance over the whole year, which one would you pick as the most likely to do so?
In NA and EU?
Yeah. Like, who will be the ultimate EU mid at the end of 2016?
I think I honestly think it's impossible to say, because there are right now so many substantial changes in the game that it depends a lot on the team as well, how the team is going to pick up the new meta and the guy on his own. So if let's say, I don't know, Ryu is the best assassin player ever, but right now, well, let's say LeBlanc, I think it's one of his favorite champions, gets nerfed again, he might be, like, fall down as one of the like contenders, you know?
Sure. Do you look at that whole field and think that, like, okay, let's put it this way. So I asked you before, like, could you be the best EU mid laner? Like, what would have to change from now to the end of next year for PowerOfEvil to be the guy who was the ultimate EU mid? What would you have to improve on, or what areas do you have to change something in your game, do you think?
I think I need to improve on decision making now with the new shot calling. I think that's a huge point for me, because it's like really different for me. Other than that, probably getting like a little bit more map awareness. Like, I think sometimes I don't look a lot on the map. I'm honest in that. So I'm not the best solo queue player, because in obviously like scrims or something, people are calling each other where to look out, where to be aware, and I focus on that. But sometimes I'm not aware of everything. So I think that's a point. And obviously, I think experience is another thing. So the longer I face opponents and the matchups and the players, like, everyone has kind of a different style. The more you pick up, the better you become.
I know that when you first played Varus, I know that also, like, around the similar time, Faker played a game of it in OGN. Were you, as far as you know, were you the first person to bring it into the mid lane in competitive play?
Yeah, I actually thought I was the first one playing it, and I didn't even, like, I think I read the comment somewhere that Faker played it, but
I can't remember if it was right after you or not. It was around the same time though.
But I don't know. Like, it just came out in scrims. I just played it there, and it looked really strong. And it was kind of like the RuneClave or Orianna. I just felt like you can try it out, and worked out. And I just kept playing it, and it looked out, and it went really, really strong. And it was like a surprise against FNATIC. I think it was when Febiven picked Castellan. I mostly played it in this matchup again. So I have a lot of different champions, which I play in like a few matchups. So that's one of the reasons why I felt like, I think at some point people were saying I had a really, really small champion pool, and I was like rolling with my eyes, because I felt like this was like not true at all.
So would it just depended, like, if you'd have played different opposing mid lanes, you would have brought out more
Yeah,
champions.
like it always depends on a lot of stuff. I'm thinking about, oh, now this champion would be the best in that case, but maybe, so if I can pick Orianna, or let's say Viktor, and Viktor would fit better in the team, would fit better in the lane, but Orianna better fits our team combination, I will most likely go for the Orianna. So that's like one of the reasons why sometimes I had more champions, I mean less champions, but more played on them.
Okay. So at the time you brought Varus out, Varus wasn't even used as an AD carry anymore. So what was the thinking back? Like, why does Varus work, or why did it work as a mid laner?
Back then, no one played, like, it was the time where the tank meter, I think, just went back, kind of. So more of the champions got squishy. You played these control mages in the mid lane. So they were like no assassins. I don't think anyone, there was like sometimes LeBlanc, but no one played Ahri. Nearly no one played Zed. So these champions were out of the mid lane. So these long range champions, Xerath, Varus, Kog'maw, had mostly kind of good matchups or fine matchups. Like they didn't always need to have the good one, but at some point, if you have Janna combined with Varus and some disengage, and the enemy team has, let's say, only Maokai with Glory, with the righteous Glory item, it was nearly impossible for the team to engage on you. So these poke champions became better and better the less engaged the enemy team got, and the less tankiness they had.
Okay. Since so many mid laners, as I mentioned before, played Orianna, or it's one that they think they have in their pool, is there just a very standard way to play Orianna? Like, do you just play it the same way as everyone else? Is there anything slightly different about the way you're playing the champion?
I think I'm probably playing a little bit more aggressive than the other ones, but I think it's quite similar to everyone. You just try to zone, you try to hit as many people as you can with the ultimate. Sometimes you speed up the AD carry. I think I am someone who less actually speeds up the AD carry with Orianna, like you do with Lulu, but I've seen a lot of people doing that. I mostly, if I play Orianna, I shield him, but I use, as example, the QW combo more as a damage than actually speeding up my AD carry. Okay. And I think the other thing is, I think I'm one of the only guys who actually try to steal stuff or like objectives with the ultimate. I feel like not many people are actually trying to do that.
So you mentioned before the Runeglaive, and obviously there was this period where that seemed really broken. Like obviously the Ezreal was the one that everyone remembers famously. But you were trying Runeglaive on a bunch of different champions. And okay, so the ones that work, everyone's going to be like, "You genius! It works so well." Yeah. Wasn't there some that it went really badly on? Didn't you try like Runeglaive Kale or something?
No, I tried Devourer Kale.
Oh, okay.
The 36, right.
Yeah.
I like.
Could it have worked?
I think, like, honestly, like if I think about the games, it was 2 games where we went like 0-10 or 0-20 in such a short time. I think you can't really judge the Kale pick in these games. You can't say, because like I feel like 90% of the people were like, the Kale pick lost the game, but I honestly don't think so. So there were games, I think both games actually went to 29 stacks, which is really, really, really sad when I think about it. But we played it in scrims, I played it in solo queue, and obviously when you fall behind, it's harder to get the stacks, but I think both games ended before 30 minutes, and normally you get the Devourer, or the Sated Devourer, in like 25 minutes. Like, it kind of depends how the game goes, because let's say your team is ahead. Like, even if I kind of being behind the mid lane, let's say my top lane wins, I can always get the top lane crab, because together we can like get the 2 stacks from the crab. But in both games, I think both bot and top and bot combined with mid lane was a little bit behind. So I could only get our jungle, which means I'm kind of stealing the farm of my jungler. Or no, actually, a lot of people didn't know that as well. You can actually get the stake from the camp, even so that your jungler is taking it. So you just needed to out-stack it once. Yeah. So you don't get the farm, but you get the stack. And it was just really hard to get these stacks, and I wouldn't really judge the Kale pick, to be honest. But after 2 games, like, people were actually like, other than that, if my team believed after the first game or the first lose of Kale, I was like, maybe Kale is not too good. Like, it's fine. But my team believed in the pick, and as long as my team believes in the pick, and like they actually said, I think it's a good fit here. Like, why would I not pick it? Just because I know people are saying, or people they don't have really the insight are saying it's shit, like I don't think that's a good reason to not play it anymore.
Fair enough. So as I mentioned earlier, even though you have this reputation that, oh, he's always got like weird picks and cheesy picks, actually the interesting thing is over the 2 splits you had champions Kog'Maw and Orianna that you played a lot of, like you played over half the games with a bunch of these ones. So it seems like you do have champions that, like as you said before, you like to play them, so you find a way to make them work. Okay, if for some reason the meta next year really was like your 4 favorite champions was all the meta champions, would you just only in that world, would you be a pure meta player, or would you still be trying to think up weird new picks to do? Will that always be a part of your game, do you think, trying to find the non-meta champion that other people won't know how to play against?
I'm not investing like a bunch of time in finding new champions, but sometimes I just try something out, so I don't think I would stop doing that. So if like Orianna, Kog'Maw and all that stuff would like be really, really strong, I would try out some Guardio in the solo queue game, and if it works out, it's good, you know. But I'm actually someone who is trying to play the meta and find 1 or 2 picks who can maybe counter. Like, I'm not investing too much time in actually finding this really cheesy picks, and like I would play like 50 solo queue champions or like random champions to actually find one good one. I would just play a few, and if I find something, it's good, or I would ask someone what he thinks about it, and yeah.
Oh, what was your opinion on Keane, the gravity mid laner? Because he's a guy where obviously it seemed like he was doing this. He was just going crazy trying to find every pick, the champion that no one's ever played for like 1 match, you know.
I don't know, he was weird. Like I didn't want to face that guy. Like I think he played everything in the mid lane. It was kind of the Kikis in the jungle, I would say. He would play everything, and it would actually work out in most cases. And I think it's great. Any of
them where the thinking didn't really make sense, or you couldn't figure out what the logic as to how that champion would work would be?
I think it's more about I think it's crazy to sometimes like to play 50 different champions, because let's say you face someone on, I don't know, you would face someone like a Toys on Orianna, and even so you maybe get the better matchup. He's such a good player on Orianna that he would actually win against you, even so you have the better matchup. So you actually need to be good at these cheese picks as well. So if you find a cheese pick out that is like good in this matchup, you actually, I think, need some games on it to actually be able to counter it. So I think sometimes when I played Kog'Maw into maybe some counter matchup, if the guy is not really confident in the matchup, as a Kog'Maw player who actually has the worst matchup, you can sometimes win just because you know everything about your champion. And I think that might be a huge problem with him. But I can't really tell because I don't know how much he's practicing it. If he's just playing every day something else, like it's really hard to say.
Yeah. So when you played Viktor, you didn't actually play him that much, considering it was like a meta champion. A lot of people were playing it. You know, a lot of people, some people only played Azir and Viktor if they could get them. But you had some games that you were really good on it. I mean, you had the one that was against Origen in the regional, like I said. You had the Rockat game where you went crazy on it. Why wasn't this champion used more by you? Doesn't it fit your style of play?
No. That was not the reason. I think I just I don't know. I can't really say. Like maybe the other champions just felt for me that they are fitting in better, or I felt this champion might counter the enemy better. I think it's hard to say for now, but I had Viktor quite a long time in my pocket, so I think when I felt confident on it, I just pulled it out. And Azir, I didn't pick it up too early, if I'm honest. I picked it up quite late, like I think before the best of 5 against FNATIC, but that was like really, really late already.
Assuming Viktor doesn't get any nerfs, is this a champion that should be viable for quite a long time to come?
Viktor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if he doesn't get any nerfs, but it's like, does he get nerfs, or are the other champions getting buffed? Like, I think if not too much changes, I think he will be a strong control mage for the next season too. It's kind of weird. I was watching IEM Cologne, and it felt like every Viktor player, or at least the QG Viktor, was like using his ultimate like every time just to poke enemy out. It felt nearly like a poke champion, and I might try that out in solo queue too. Like, it's something new, but I normally use the ultimate to really actually get a kill, like hit one laser, maybe hit 2 lasers, and then actually go for the all-in. But this guy was just using it for poke every time.
So as you mentioned, I mean, you kind of set the tone where early on you told me, like, you know, you just play champions that you really like to play. So one of the ones obviously is Syndra. Now I noticed in LCS you played it quite a bit, like in the first split, but it didn't always work that well. Like some of the, like you not too many wins on it. Is Syndra viable at all now?
I think she's viable, and I think she was viable before as well. I think she's good in some matchups, but it depends a lot on the team as well, because she's really immobile. So I think if the teams have, like, let's say they had in the summer split, there were like a lot of tanks, or like there was like Hecarim and stuff. So if the guy just ults or like home guard TPs onto you, you had a huge problem actually killing that guy. But right now, with everyone being really, really squishy, and I think AD carries are, or from my perspective, AD carries are even more squishy than before. They're obviously dealing way more damage, but as a mid laner or Syndra player, you can kill them like even faster, and that's really, really helpful for Syndra. And I think she's really, really strong now with the Thunderlord as well, mastery.
Okay, I want to try something. For a bunch of these champions I've named that are ones that you've played a lot, I want to go through each one, and I'll ask you, and I just want you to pick out someone else who plays that champion, who you think is very good on that champion, or they do something interesting with it. So if we go with Orianna, who has a good Orianna in your opinion? What do you
I think Toys is one of the best Orianna players.
Have you watched him this season?
No, I actually didn't watch him. I watched him
from back in the
before.
day,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And he was just like, I don't know, always hitting so many people with his ultimate in nearly every fight, and I was kind of trying to look a little bit. When is he holding on with the ultimate, when he's like instantly using it, and I think this was kind of helpful as well.
Is he someone you looked up to? I mean, you've mentioned him a few times now.
On Orianna, yeah, like I had always like kind of like one pro player with like a champion where I was like, man, this guy's so good in this champion. Probably like that, I think.
Okay. What about Kog'maw? Who else has a good mid Kog'maw?
I think back in the days I would say Froggen, but I don't know, I'm actually confident enough to say I think I'm really, really strong on Kog'maw, and I don't really look up to anyone right now anymore on Kog'maw.
You're the best Kog'maw, right? You're the best.
I'm not sure
if champion. We're not saying you're the best player in the world. You're just on this one champion. It's your specialty, right?
I think I know a lot on this champion, so yeah, I think I'm really strong on this one.
Okay. What about Syndra? Is there anyone else who even plays it?
I need to think about the only one I actually know from who was playing it was, I think I saw 1-2 games from Faker and 1-2 games from Bjergsen.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. He did play this year. He had the crazy stun where he got a couple of people in the LeBlanc.
Yeah, exactly. And the other one was Bjergsen a few times, but I think both of them don't play the champion so much. So I think Syndra was just, I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't think there's any specific player who's actually playing it so much that I would look out for.
But you still like it enough that we'll still see it in your pool?
Probably, yeah.
Ah, okay. Okay, since people will always define you, at least at the moment, as like he just plays the control mages, he likes to play those like safer champions. Do you actually secretly on solo queue, do you actually play games of Fizz and just go balls deep on everyone trying to do you ever do that? Do you ever do that for fun?
Yeah, like people know me a lot from these control mages, but I play assassins too. So I play LeBlanc, I play Ari, I play mostly these AP assassins. I don't know, I'm just not the type of guy who plays these AD assassins. I know they were just never like my style, so I'm not sure about these ones. But I play Ari, I play LeBlanc, and the right matchup. And right now on the new meta, I think 1v1 kills are really like easy to get in the mid lane. So maybe we will see them. Me.
If for some reason one day it did become the case that like mid lane was like Zed or people playing Riven and stuff all the time, and these were very strong picks, would you switch over to that? Would you try and still make the mages work and find matchups?
I think that's a tough question, but I will try to make the mages work. But obviously, if it doesn't work, you need to adapt as a player.
Sure.
So I would probably try to adapt.
I've noticed there's an interesting phenomenon. Like I've seen it even in top sportsmen, where oftentimes if you ask one of them like which player do they admire or what skill do they look at, and usually it's actually someone who's like the opposite style to them, because as a result it's something that like is a skill they don't have, for example, and so they watch that guy and they're like, wow, he's amazing. And whereas someone who's similar style to them, they can go, oh, I can see how he did that, like I understand. Is there someone who is like just the pure assassin type player who is very impressive to you, or someone who you kind of look at and you go like, that's like a different style to me, obviously?
I think I could identify myself really good with like someone like Easyhoon, because he plays these control mages a lot, and someone who is playing a lot of like these assassins or a lot of different stuff. I would say is once it's like in EU, I would say Rio is one of the guys who plays so many assassins and so many matchups, where I would more like sometimes favor a control mage.
Sure.
He would go for, I don't know, Fitz or something, and overall I think there's like Faker who just picks, I don't know, sometimes the most craziest stuff and or like craziest assassins like E mid lane, and I'm like, okay, you know, let's watch the game and have some fun, you know.
There's some players who are like top Western players who, if I talk to them like, oh, do you watch Korea? They'll say yes, but they just mean as in like they watch it almost for fun, you know. They watch the games just to see who's doing well and stuff. But I know, so for example, there's some AD carries I talk to and they don't particularly pay attention to like some top Chinese AD carry or whatever. They don't necessarily know exactly what he's doing, but it feels like all the mid laners I ever talk to, it's almost like they're all just like Faker fans and they're all just watch every game and they're trying to figure out what's he doing and is he doing. Are you this interested in Faker? Is he a special player for you?
Yeah, like for me he's a special player, but I'm actually not watching every game. I'm watching a lot on like these tournaments, so the normal OGN games I'm not really watching everything, but if there's like Casper Cup or something, or I know like their qualifier, their playoffs games, I normally watch that. So it's a lot about what is like OP in Korea too. Like you can learn from them as well. So it's not only like, it's a lot helpful for you, I think, as a mid laner.
Do you think the best EU mids are at the level of Faker? Are they comparable to him?
I think it's hard to say for me, because I only faced Faker once or twice in solo queue, so I can't really judge his skill, I think, till I actually played against him in the lane.
Were you actually on an account that was called PowerOfEvil? Could he have known who you were?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Were you trying to go super ham to beat him?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, I tried as hard as I can. Like, it was a lot of fun playing US solo queue while everyone was here, like, facing like these. Even so, it's a solo queue. You face like these, like, top tier mid laners, and you just try to win. You know.
Okay. Was the one that in solo queue alone really was like just insane, really crazy, or something unexpected?
I actually can't remember who was someone. Joey Flashwolf, the mid laner.
Oh, Maple.
Yeah, I know. I faced his Echo like a few times, and I think he's like one of the best Echo players, and it was really tough playing against him. I think he was like, I don't know anyone playing so much Echo like him, and he was playing it so many times. It was really cool.
Actually, when Echo came out, people were initially trying it in the mid lane. Should it be a viable mid lane champion?
When people were playing it in the mid lane, I felt it was not too strong. I felt it was way stronger in the jungle or on top lane. So when it came out, I honestly played 1-2 games on it, and then I stopped. And because it just felt like, from seeing games or playing against it, I felt it was not too strong, and seeing it in the jungle felt just way stronger. So I stopped really early playing the champion, and my team honestly didn't want me to play it anyway, because it was not like, they didn't really want me to play. I mean, like, they were more like, I think it fits better in the jungle as well, so it went really fast away from our team.
So even to this day, people still think of like jungler mid synergies like one of the really important ones in the game. And I know there's some mid players where if I said to them like, oh, you didn't do very well in this part of the split, they'd be like, if it was privately, they'd be like, yeah, but I don't have like as good a jungler as that guy. That's like the excuse they'd always give. If hypothetically I could let you pick any jungler, okay, so you could, the idea is you'd pick one that either like you think your style would fit really well with, or having this guy as your jungler would allow you to play maybe like a more expansive style. I don't know what it would be. So you could have anyone. You could have Svenskeren, you could have Jankos, you could have Bengi, or so, who would you want if you just in this hypothetical world, when imaginary, it's obviously not going to happen. Who would you want to, like, who would be the ideal fit, do you think, out of all junglers you've seen to fit with PowerOfEvil? I
think it's more about, honestly, the attitude of the guy and how he, like, I think it's not only about how good is he, what his skills are, is he the best in mechanics. I think for me it's more about, does he respect me, does he help me out when I call for him, can we do this crazy stuff together, even so, like, would he blindly trust in me? And I think I didn't play enough with Amazing to actually say that yet, but I think he respects me as a player, and I think we both respect each other, and I think that's one of the most important stuff. So if I play with someone, like let's say a jungler, and I don't respect him, I think that's a huge issue you can have, because you don't really trust him, he doesn't really trust you, and I think that's the biggest problem, like the synergy can have. And afterwards, obviously, does he have a good mindset, and does he believe you? Is he getting like super mad if you did a like wrong call and he died because of you? I think I would actually do that before actually going for like mechanics or having the best player.
In general, are you the type of mid laner where you want to kind of like dictate to the jungler? Like you want to tell him when to come, or you want to tell him what play to set up, or do you prefer when the jungler has that say and you just go along? What, is there a general rule to it, do you think?
I don't know. I think it's different to every guy, or like every mid laner, every jungler. But I'm the type of guy who I'm not doing too many calls for him. Like I'm telling him I think we can gank now, and I kind of let him decide. But sometimes I'm like, you need to come now, or like you need to gank now, and then he actually needs to, like, I feel like he needs to come at this point, because I'm not doing that too often, if you know what I mean. But if I actually do it, he should trust in me, or like trust me and follow the call. And if it doesn't work out, it's my fault. Like I will take the mistake on my shoulders, you know, and just keep playing. And after the game, we can analyze it afterwards, you know.
Obviously, compared to some of the legendary players, you're still quite a young guy. You've only played in LCS for a year now. How do you think of your overall career overall? Like, has it been good so far? Are you satisfied with how it's gone? Should it have been better? What do you think?
I'm really satisfied with my career. Like, I played once DreamHack, I got first place with NRP. I played 2 times IEM San Jose, I went first and second, and even in my first LCS split, I went second and fourth. I think the only sad part is that that I lost 3 times the chance to go to Worlds. I think that's the only thing I'm a little bit sad about, and not having like the closest games, like 0-9. It's kind of sad, but other than that, I'm quite happy about my career, and I'm really looking forward to see how the mid lane sharing is going to work out. I'm really excited about it, and maybe after a year I can tell, you know, do I like it, do I not, do I hate competing about the position. I think it's just like kind of a new adventure for me, and we will see how it works out.
Do you have a final message at the end of the interview, or someone you'd like to thank?
I don't know. I will just thank everyone for supporting me, like all my old teams, like NRP for giving me the big shot of DreamHack, like my first offline event. Afterwards, like UL was such a great time. Like I have really good memories, crazy games, and well, now I'm looking out for Origen, and I hope everyone just keeps supporting me in Origen, and hopefully I'm going to reach Worlds or MSI with them.
Okay, danke.
Kein Problem.